Hello and welcome at Lulu Place. This week project is an Egyptian platter made out of a bamboo cutting board. Well, the final plate turns out not to be perfect. There are some artifacts. We can see some tool marks there and some tear out. I had some problems. I learned a lot. I'm a beginner turner. I just started turning beginning of this year. So without a doubt, I made some bad decisions, but hopefully we will learn something during this video, as I learned a lot, and next time we will do better. I started the program in the free Inkscape vector design program by looking at some Egyptian icons on the internet, and I put them in layers and finally to make the final design that suits me for after to mill it on my CNC machine. Next, I imported the vector image into Fusion 360, where I started to make the 3D design to do the milling. I'm not going to explain in this video how to do that all in Fusion 360. I think there are a lot of videos online where you can learn this if you're interested. But if you want me to make a video about how to make the milling path, just leave a comment in the comments. What's nice in Fusion 360 that you can simulate before you go to the actual milling. You can simulate the parts, and so you don't spoil your precious wood by making errors in your path creation. As you can see here, I start the simulation, and we speed up the video a little bit, and you can see that the software is simulating the whole process of the milling. Okay, then next we go to the real stuff. This is my MB CNC. This is mostly printed CNC made. It's an open source design by V1 Engineering. I will put up a link in the description. It's a hobby grade CNC, but it's doing quite a good job. Of course, you have to adapt your feeds and speeds to the machine. And you can see here, after 3 hours of milling, we have the final result. We'll have to clean some pockets, and then we can go to the casting. Okay, so now we're ready for the resin casting. But before I started the casting, I sealed the wood with my shellac-based wood sealer. To avoid having too many air bubbles in the resin later on. Well, it turned out not to be a very good way to do it, because we will see later I have quite some bubbles in the resin. I think it should have been better if I just put in a little layer of resin to seal the pockets and let it dry over, and then after do the real casting to avoid all these air bubbles in the project. But it is what it is. I thought the shellac-based wood sealer will do the job, but that wasn't the case. As you can see, I try to mix the resin with the colors, and you know how it goes. Of course, I don't have a pressure pot or neither a vacuum machine, but anyway, as you can see, the cutting board is quite big, so I don't see how you can put this under pressure to avoid the bubbles. What we also can see here very well is the cutting board. We can see that it's end grade, side grade, glued blocks of bamboo. And with the hard resin later on, this will turn out to be a problem, and maybe I was not really prepared for that. So it's hard to turn something with and resin and wood, mixture of side grade and grain all together. Hopefully, maybe someone will leave a comment in the comments how I can deal with this in a future project to avoid all the problems we will see later on in the video. On the CNC, I just made a slight cut of an outer circle, which make it easier for me to cut out the final blank on my bandsaw. Okay, now we're ready to make some shavings, and as you can see, it's the first time I really max out my little lathe. Yeah, it's just a beginner's lathe. I'm just a beginner, but it's the first time I do it this big. The problem was a little bit with the tool handle, because the diameter is about, I think it's max 30 millimeters. But the tool handle just doesn't go far enough outside, so I can't even properly round up my blank. And then I had a problem with the tailstock, because I couldn't get it close enough to support the blank. And yeah, so it started out difficult, but we have to find a solution, and very often we do. So as you can see, the solution was to get rid of the tailstock altogether, and hopefully the platter will stay on the lathe. I put it on. I use a faceplate to put it on the lathe, so it will be okay. As you can see, start to turn a recess here, and after I made the recess, and I will start to form the bottom of the plate. And hello, there is my dog Jimmy. Say hi to Jimmy. He always comes in when it's time to have lunch. He knows it will be there. And well, have to take a little lunch break then. Hang on, we'll be back soon. Okay, back on the project to finish the bottom of the plate. So using my bowl gouge to form the bottom of the plate. And as you can see, there is a lot of dust coming off. Normally, when you have nice wood, you have nice shavings, but this is really very fine, dusty, wow, powder. I don't know if it's normal for bamboo, but I think it's because it's an old cutter board. But for me, it was already an indication that I will have problems to make a nice flat cut and without tear out. So, which will we see later on in the project, there is quite some tear out in the wood. So I finished the shape of the bottom and it's time for sanding. Of course, I did not film the whole sanding process, you know how it goes, but I started from 80 grit and I sanded it up till 600. And sometimes in between the sanding, I put on some shellac-based sealer, so to seal up the grain, because I saw already had some end grain tear outs, and hopefully I could make it a little bit better by putting on some sealer. Okay, so I turned the ball around, put it in my chuck, and started with a freshly sharpened ball gouge to hollow out the inside of the ball. And even though I had a freshly sharpened ball gouge, it didn't felt very good. I saw some end grain tear out, and even in the resin caster I saw some chippings coming up, and it really frightened me a little bit. I was afraid to break the project. So I decided to continue with the carbide scraper, a round carbide scraper, in the hope that I could get a cleaner cut. Well, the carbide scraper turned out to be a little bit better for the resin casting. I had no chip outs anymore, but I could see a lot of air bubbles in the casting. So it was a sign that I did not seal the wood, the pockets enough before the casting. And on the wood, I still had a lot of end grain tear out, and I think it was just proper to this plate, to this bamboo cutting board. But without a doubt, if I had better techniques, I'm just a beginner woodturner again, and maybe someone could give me a clue, help me out in the comments, what I should have done in this situation, because I was a little bit lost here in my possibilities to face this problem. And then in all my fury and efforts to get this project right, I step on the camera and push him out of sight. I didn't notice it right away, so I'm sorry that you don't have the full picture now. And then, like I did with the outside of the ball, I sanded up the inside from 80 grit till 600 grit. And of course, I discovered a lot of air bubbles in the epoxy, which was very unfortunate, but I couldn't really resolve that. And still a lot of tool marks and side grains, and I wasn't really happy about the result. The only problem was that I didn't dare to go very much deeper, because I knew that the casting wasn't really going through the bottom end of the ball, so I might scraping away too many epoxy and will lose my inserts. So I tried to make it a little bit better with my negative rake scraper. As you can see in the image, the problem is that it really didn't help very much, and I do think even that the epoxy inlays look worse after. So this was not a good idea. I don't know what I should have done to make this better, but because I saw already the wood through the inlay, the epoxy inlay, I couldn't go any further before I will lose my images. So I decided to let it be what it is and take it as a learning and finish the project with some lacquer finish. Okay, so that is it. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you learned something from the project. I did really learn something, and if you know what I did wrong or what I should have done better, please leave me a comment, and till the next project, happy turning.